Hello, Mabel. You finally came. And you brought a friend.
What I love about this industry and my work is that you are always learning, you are always refining your craft. For this episode, having the black and white factor was really testing fabrics to understand how they react to black and white. That really centers around contrast, texture, because you can imagine that if it was low contrast, it would almost look completely new, which was not what we wanted.
You know, the beautiful thing about acting is you get to also be able to create the fantastical. Most of life is bland. I don't care how famous you are. I don't give a shit who you are. Most of life on a daily basis is normal. But in the normality, you can find extraordinary moments.
I'm Marc Bernard.
And I'm Princess Weeks.
And this is the official Welcome to Derry podcast.
In Derry, the past isn't past. It screens on a loop. Fathers, daughters, monsters, until the film burns up.
And sometimes the scariest thing isn't what's in the dark, it's what a town chooses to see in the light.
Today, we're diving into episode 106, In the Name of the Father.
Written by Jason Fuchs, Cord Jefferson, and Brad Caleb Kane, and directed by Jamie Travis.
We'll talk with Stefan Rider, Hank Grogan himself, about courage, loneliness, and the quiet moments that brought his performance together.
Then, Oscar-nominated costume designer Luis Sequeira shows us how silhouettes, textures, and stains make Derry feel timeless, and just a little off.
Quick housekeeping before we roll.
We're about to get spoilery for episode 106.
If you haven't watched yet, hit pause before it's too late. We open very differently than usual.
Black and white in a boiler room.
Mm-hmm.
We got to talk about this boiler room stuff. We got to talk about Periwinkle.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we got to talk about black and white, Juniper Hill, 1935. This little girl wakes up in her room and she gets dragged out. It's like, the clown's talking to me. I got to go see the clown.
I don't want to go.
Oh, there's nothing to be afraid of down there.
Ingrid, who we discover as a younger woman, is like, yeah, nothing happens bad in boiler rooms, right? Let's go for a walk, little girl. It's all black and white and red balloons.
Mm-hmm.
Un red balloon. Un Luftballon.
Sweetheart, it's okay. It's just a balloon.
It's always funny because as media people, it's like our brains are clicking. We're like, this is not right. No nurse in any good union would take a small child down to the boiler. But I did not expect the extent of how much Ingrid's storyline would play out. I was thinking maybe a little Nurse Ratchety, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Normal, or maybe even a little bit of a little occult. You know, I could see a clown cult popping off on Derry. Did not expect what we got with Clown Daughter.
No. You know, Lily and her whole story this episode is, I kept on calling her like Derry's Gollum. Because she has like the magic dagger.
Yes.
And so she, again, in the previous episode, she stumbled on the dagger that Daniel left in the sewers.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's like, you know, don't talk to me, don't touch me, don't touch it. Nobody can touch my dagger but me.
Lily, just give it. Don't touch it!
And the Precious was making all the friends act like their worst impulses. And I love that scene where they're having the fight because Lily is saying that, like, I was the only one who survived. I have survivor guilt. I have a pickle father and dead friends.
You were up in the booth. You didn't see. If you hadn't come to my house that day, they probably would still be alive. And the cops wouldn't be hunting my daddy like some kind of animal.
I love Ronnie. I feel for her. She's in a terrible situation. But I'm also just like, girl, your dad's cooked. You can't be blaming everybody.
No, like, listen, things have now escalated out of control.
Yeah.
Although I did appreciate Ronnie being like, you know what? You're crazy, Lily.
I should have never let you out of Juniper Hill.
That's where you belong. You're nuts. Like, she's not having it.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody should not have it anymore with Lily.
Because the plans have been bad.
And that forms a schism between her and the rest of the Losers Club. And the only person she can trust is Ingrid. So she goes to Ingrid's house, and then we get all of this origin story for Periwinkle.
My father was a carnival performer. He called himself Pennywise the Dancing Clown. I adored him. and he was taken from me.
And I also love how it was shot. Like, I love when horror scenes happen in the daylight and it just looks so serene. The light's coming through and she's just looking at you, this beautiful woman. And you're like, but you are a little unwell.
And I kind of love the fact that she's just not monstrous for monstrous' sake. She has a goal. And it's an understandable one.
Yes.
Which is, I want my dad back. I'm lonely. I miss my dad. And how do I
Yeah.
get dad? Murder.
Yeah, I mean, and it's normal. I don't know why she doesn't feed her husband to the clown. That would have been my first call.
For real.
Honestly.
Although maybe she tried that. She like Pennywise doesn't dig on adults.
That's true. He's like, children scare easier. But I feel like, it's a recession. You got to get what you can get. You can't be like, I only want purebred children. Like, okay, can you take this open farmed adult, please? Like, and he's probably got PTSD. There's mad wars and stuff that happened while he's been an adult. Like, just torment him with his war crimes.
Yeah.
It'd be funny.
And you can get him to the sewer easy. Just leave little bottles of scotch, like breadcrumbs, leading into the sewers. Like, ooh, what's that? It's got, ooh, well done steak. Ooh, I'll follow wherever you want me to follow.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I definitely appreciated that sort of black and white horror story of here's what happened in 1935, as well as the dawning reality for Lily that, like, maybe her love of the precious and her desire to find comfort in Ingrid is not going to serve her in the best stead. And maybe she does need her friends back. And, like, when Lily left, when she decides to chase her periwinkle fancy, we get little blossoms of young love amongst our losers, right? Like, we
Yeah.
get these two couples that begin to kind of French off, and we follow, Marge and Rich. They're like, oh, it's just us here in the standpipe.
What are you doing here? Still haven't landed one on Main Street. Wanna try? I have to redress my eye. The tape is hard to take off. Want some help? I was a Weebelo for a couple years. I know a good trick to take a bandage off without it hurting.
It's really gross.
But it's like super tender and super sweet and like, oh, you're a pirate. Oh, you're my knight. Like, oh, yeah.
We love it. We love a little D&D role play. I love those little sequences. Like, there's something about first loves when you watch them on TV that are very charming. And it was just pleasant seeing these two outsiders, these two losers genuinely form a connection and look after each other.
I did appreciate, though, like the grossness of Marge's eye wound.
Oh yeah, it is gnarly. It's hard to look at. It was like, as glasses wearers, like we said before, this is like one of our biggest nightmares, and I'm just like,
oh hell yeah,
put it away from me.
When Rich pulls off the little bandage and you see it and it's trying to blink.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. It's awful, isn't it? No, it's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Good work, makeup team.
Yeah.
Well done.
Excellent work, makeup team. And it's like, if he wanted to, he would. He did it. See how he stands by his pirate woman?
Yeah.
Take notes, everyone. Doesn't have to be a loneliness epidemic.
No.
And then with Ronnie and Will, I'm just like, I'm so glad that the two Black kids in this town found each other and like each other. Like, it doesn't feel forced because they are in this very intense situation together.
You think I went too far? I mean, maybe I did, but just tired. I'm tired of being scared.
I know. Me too.
It feels organic. And I do love that as anything was about to get serious, Charlotte's Black Momadar was like, oh, no.
William Dubois Hanlon, get your disobedient behind in this car right now.
Dubois?
I love that she rolls up on him and just uses his full government name.
She picked that one out.
Yes. Yeah. Leroy gets Will. I get the middle name.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the middle name? Thurgood Marshall.
William Tupac Hanlon, if you don't get your right in this car.
No. And then she like kidnaps them off the street.
Yeah.
Like, get in the car.
Right.
You two, get in the car.
You too, little miss.
Me? Why?
You're both my kids now.
Y'all think y'all grown?
I'm not sure about you, but I have definitely had the experience of when a parent is yelling at you and the sound starts to drop out.
Understand is I could have killed you down there.
And they feel really far away.
But instead, I had to send my best friend home in a box.
And you kind of just detach yourself from it.
Because you disobeyed me.
Come on, Dad, that's not fair. You know what killed Uncle Polly.
What I know is I have a son that has no goddamn sense.
Okay, Leroy.
Charlotte, I'm sorry. You have to stay out of this. You were not there.
I felt Will so deeply in that moment. Oh, this is adolescence with Black parents who have like had it up to here, who are on their last nerve, as my mother would say. I'm on my last nerve. I did not feel so much like Will when Will decided to like give lip, back talk.
You don't leave your room without my permission. Do you understand?
No.
Baby, mind your daddy now.
And I was like, oh, Will, homie, what are you doing?
I was scared for him. And then it happened.
And then it happened.
I know that. I know I'm not you, because I would never let my friends die.
Leroy!
Leroy did the thing that parents in the 1960s were not told that they shouldn't do. He lays hands on his son.
And that scene was just so, there's so many layers to that are both in the text and what I think that we all bring to it from our perspectives. And it's this moment of Black parents across the diaspora have this mentality of like, I have to teach my children discipline because when I hit them, I'm hitting them with love. I'm hitting them to teach them how to be safe so that other people won't hurt them. And I think that often they don't realize that it is more distressing to have the person who unconditionally loves you, allegedly, put hands on you as a way of trying to help you. And I think like, again, it's a moment where both characters are feeling very valid emotions, like Will going into the sewers, not good, not very smart, very bad, actually. You know, so of course Leroy has a right to feel protective, but Leroy also was not listening to Will when Will was telling him that stuff was going wrong. And rather than like listen and talk, he acts with violence. And I think that is like one of those things that you just never get to come back from as a parent. Like you may heal, you may grow and have empathy for your parents, but I know character-wise, Will not forget that happened.
No, I don't think he will. I mean, granted, there's also the like, he doesn't have another frame of reference. Will doesn't know that this doesn't happen in every house.
Yeah.
And for all we know, in Derry, it might, because that seems like a not incredibly well-balanced place. But it was also clear that like Leroy's anger and frustration was less because Will was disobedient, but it's more because for the first time, he discovered how powerless he was against something he didn't understand. Like he is now confronted for real with it. With Pennywise, with that level of magic and supernatural and horror. And, you know, he doesn't have, apparently, the ability to feel fear, but he's going to feel something. And that something ends up being anger. And it lashes out in ways that I don't think he anticipated. You know, and this is not in any way to excuse it.
Of course.
But it is, I understand it from that character's point of view. But it is clear that homie's sleeping on the couch for a while.
Oh yeah, Charlotte was not having that. And I feel like how she handled that was just so perfectly 60s of like, she didn't, in the moment, she was just like, what? She didn't freak out, but she was like, I know what you did. And that's not what you usually do. And I think even when Will was, after getting hit, was like, it got to you. It's in you too. That to him, like, this wasn't just his father reacting to him. He's like, oh, you're evil. Like that thing is evil. And I think that in and of itself is a heart-wrenching realization of how this town and this circumstance has driven these two apart.
Yeah, you know, and it drives Leroy in to find Dick because Dick is the only person who may or may not have answers to this. The only person who might at least have an idea of what they're dealing with. And Dick is up to here. Dick is like, I'm going to get drunk. And then Leroy's like, we got no orders. We got to find pillars. But like, for real, what the hell happened to you in those tunnels?
You stayed in those tunnels for hours. What happened?
And then that's when Dick kind of unveils, you know, a little bit about his origin story.
This thing I got, when I was little, let me see things.
Okay. What kind of things?
Dead ones.
Here's what his grandmother told him to do. Here's what was in that box. You know, here's what he'd been trying his best to not let loose, which is the dead.
I took all them dead things, threw them in that box in my mind, and I shoved that goddamn lid on tight. I was 9. I ain't seen them since. Till yesterday.
And Leroy doesn't care.
I gotta find what we're looking for. Did you hear a word I just said?
He's like, I gotta help my son. We gotta protect the country. And Digger's like, fuck you, fuck them, fuck it, fuck everybody.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I don't give a fuck! Get out! Get out!
Plus, there's a party going on. And it's like, it's one of those moments in the show where the balance of horror real life and horror supernatural blend so perfectly that as we're seeing, the losers, except for Lily, she's not invited, I guess, hanging out, having old school Coca-Cola, which I'm like, okay, girl, that's the good stuff. They don't make it like that no more.
I think there's something wrong with this Coke.
No, you got a Air Force Coke.
Tastes kind of funny.
That's the taste of freedom, son.
Air Force Coca-Cola, that's a little rum in
Exactly. It's like, and they're just giving it to them. It was a different time. Children worked back then. They need to take the edge off. She'd only got one eye. Let her have her little rum and Coke. And so you have this joy of everyone hanging out, dancing, having a good time. But then, just as violent as Pennywise, you have the white vigilantes deciding that it's time to go take matters into our own hand and find Hank. And Hank is black, so we got to go find out where all the other blacks are. It's one of those notes that the show ends on, and it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah, who's at the door? White dudes in masks.
Just as scary as Pennywise. If not scarier.
And if it is not Halloween, the other 364 days, that is a bad thing to show up on your doorstep.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder, there's a bit where I think the ex-police chief is like, we got an anonymous tip of where Grogan might be.
A lady called in a tip. Didn't leave her name, but, well, considering the nature of the place she was pointing at, I'd say it's a pretty safe bet.
It's like, who do we imagine was the anonymous tipster? Because who else knows where Charlotte took ye old Hank?
Mm-hmm. What if it was Ingrid? Like, what if she really is, like, white she-devil, like an undercover brother? This is all part of her plot. I don't know. I can't trust her no more.
Yeah, and it does, as you said, like the wonderful juxtaposition between horror and innocence is kind of what makes the show, it's kind of what makes it work as a franchise. And, this is lovely moment where Hank meets his daughter's first boyfriend, and he's trying to be a dad. Like, he hasn't been able to dad in a while. He's been on the run. He's been on the lam. He's a lambist. And so he finally gets to be like, well, what movies do you like? Movies tell a lot about a person. Like, and Will is trying his best to like, well, Mr. Grogan, I saw War of the Worlds once. He's like, oh, all right, you're not all bad. I mean, I'm a fugitive. I don't have a right to judge anything. But it was very, very sweet.
Yeah. Those moments, I think, help the medicine go down, because next week on Welcome to Derry, it's going to get worser. I know that's not really a real word, but it is going to get worser.
Yeah, it's going to be all bad in a biblical kind of way.
Let's meet the man at the center of some of the drama in Derry. Hank Grogan, brought to life by Stefan Rider.
He studied finance at Morehouse, theater at UCLA, and then Denzel Washington himself spotted his talent, cast him in his first on-screen role in The Great Debaters. Since then, you've seen him in Marvel shows, network dramas, and on the big screen.
And in Welcome to Derry, he takes on the role of Hank Grogan, a father whose life is upended when he's wrongfully accused of a terrible crime. Please welcome to the show, Stefan Rider. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. Let's go.
Let's go. Tell me a little bit about getting cast in Welcome to Derry. Like, what was the process like? And what does it feel like working on a project that already has so much love and excitement around it?
So, for me, it was a very different process, I would imagine, for everybody else, because in 2018, I auditioned and tested with Andy for the role of Mike Hanlon for our It Chapter 2. And so I flew out to Toronto, met Barbara, met the creative team, saw what they were doing, and more so than anything, had a great audition, but really connected with each other. And, he wanted to be very clear and very specific with making sure that the child actor and the adult version looked very, very similar. And so I ended up not getting the role. It was devastating. But he wrote me a lovely email. And he said, in essence, you know, it was at that point his hardest decision he had to make as a director. But he hoped that he would be able to work with me on future projects. And so fast forward, this audition came to me and I was like, well, hold on now. They know me. Like, they know me, and I understand the world because I worked with him one-on-one. So I got a chance to get to know Andy and his sensibilities. And I had it for like a week, just holding it. And, you know, part of my process is you read it over and over again. But, you know, things start to pass through your subconscious and your mind, and I kind of see what I need, what I don't need, and, you know, it allows me to connect to my ancestors and, you know, different things. And so I finally felt like I had an approach, and I put myself on tape on a Friday. And Monday went, and I was like, let me not harass my agent. So I'll wait until Tuesday to ask what's going on, you know? And so then Tuesday went around, and I reached out, and she hit me back, and she was like, it's at studio. And they are waiting for studio, and then you'll get past the network. And by, I think that Wednesday, I got the job.
Heck yeah.
Damn.
Well fucking deserved.
I was just going to say, that sounds like the best version of auditioning for an actor.
Yeah.
Because I know
Yes.
that you guys almost never know why a thing doesn't work when it doesn't work.
Absolutely.
It's just
Absolutely.
like, didn't go my way. But the fact that you got to sit with him, that you got to work with him, that he got to know you, like, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, and Andy and Barbara are real ones, you know, and anybody that, you know, especially if you grew up the way I grew up or grew up in a Black neighborhood, you know, what did Jay-Z say? Back then, your word was everything, because everything you said you did it. Didn't talk about it if you ain't lived it. And so, you know, you rarely meet people in an industry that, you know, say and do what they say they're going to do. I mean, period. Unfortunately, the BS in our industry is incredible. And maybe, you know, maybe that's all industries. But, you know, a lot of people talk a good talk, but most people don't know how to follow it up. And I can say that they do.
Yeah.
And did.
That's awesome. I mean, and you are incredible in the show, so very well deserved. I'm glad we got to see you on our screens. Since you did audition for the second film, were you a fan of it growing up?
No, I wasn't a fan of it. No, I can't say I was a big reader. You know, I didn't grow up in theater. I never thought I was going to be an actor. You know, I grew up in the hood, and, you know, people that look like me didn't do that. You know, I wanted to play football, run. You know, I wanted to get out the hood. And so the goal was always to be able to make a lot of money to take my mom and everybody else, you know, out of there. And so acting was never something that crossed my mind. And I can't sing. You know, I'll be the first one to say that. As a matter of fact, I might not be the first one. A lot of my friends and family members are like, this mother, he can't sing at all. You know what I mean? I'm like, first of all, you know what I mean? I don't need the choir. I don't need y'all to be telling me I can't sing.
I know.
But, right. And in high school, most theater was based on musical theater in most high schools.
Yeah.
And so I didn't see myself, you know, fitting into that. That wasn't what I wanted to do. So it never crossed my mind. And even when I went to Morehouse, I was a finance major. In my junior year, I was like, man, I can't be doing this for the rest of my life. This is boring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is boring. And I feel like I didn't grow up with my dad, and I had a lot of anger issues, and I needed to articulate myself. And this is when I started to be exposed to James Baldwin and Richard Wright and, you know, all these incredible writers. And I needed a way to express myself. And so I took this intro to acting at Spelman. And I was like, well, if I'm not no good, at least I might get a girl.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's going to work out either way.
I'm leaving with something.
I'm going to give something like Denzel. I'm going to leave with something, right?
Exactly.
But it turned out that I was good. And you know, and you don't know you feel invisible until somebody sees you. And somebody helped me see that I had a talent that needed to be cultivated, but a talent indeed. And so from that moment on, acting became, you know, a love. Acting saved my life because I didn't know what I was going to do. So I love acting because I feel like I have a responsibility to give back, but I can only do that by giving up myself. And that's why I work with people that can help question my limitations, that force me to have to live with things that a lot of times, you know, as ordinary people, we try to avoid.
Yeah. In a work like this, where you are touching on so many themes, you know, as they put it, that are just the realities that we're dealing with as Black people in this country. You know, Hank deals with systemic racism, wrongful conviction, you know, all this misinformation. How did it feel to be playing a character that felt so living in like those circumstances?
So Black folk, right, which, you know, even that can irritate me, right? Because that's still a reaction to people that enslaved people came up with and
Right.
our best way to kind of solve that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, we come from royalty. So we were enslaved, but we weren't slaves. And so for me, it's challenging because on paper, Hank is a projectionist.
Mm-hmm.
But like I know in 1962, I know for a fact that's not what he believed his purpose was. It's not what he loved to do. It doesn't mean he didn't enjoy film, but 9 times out of 10, what he's watching on a daily basis are white films that don't represent him, his daughter, or his mother, or his family, right? And so I had to understand the given circumstances of Hank in relation to it, because it's about it ultimately, right? It's not called Hank. It's called it, right? But then also deal with I understood what the writers and Andy and all of them were saying. And at the same time, I also understand I'm a black man that went to Morehouse, that lived in a black neighborhood, surrounded by black neighborhoods, grew up with a black family, love where I come from, where I still understand that as a projectionist, that was the best job he could get, right? The blessing, I think, for Hank was that he was around something that lended or allowed him to cultivate and curate his imagination, because he's still a projectionist at a theater. And so I had to then look at those things and recognize that Hank was on a hero's journey. Hank doesn't start and end in the same place.
I also wonder, how did you figure out the mindset of Hank, who's living in a predominantly white space? How did you approach that feeling of loneliness, of isolation that Hank has to experience living where he lives?
It's a great question. I had to sit with my own loneliness. What I've learned about acting is that you can't get to Hank until you allow yourself to get to Stefan, right? Because I'm the instrument that Hank has to resonate off of. The bones of a character are the objectives and wants and obstacles, right? That's the stuff you kind of learn in school. But the blood of a character is like understanding, what am I willing to give and put on the line in terms of my soul?
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean everything about Stefan I can utilize, right? Because Hank clearly vibrates in a different way, and he's in different circumstances that I've never been in. Hank, point blank period, is a more courageous person than I am. Because he's had to take actions in his life that I've never had to take. He's had to confront things in his life that I've never had to confront. And so there was a lot of resistance there because that's scary, right? It's scary to be vulnerable. Hank knows how to live in both worlds.
Yeah.
He has to. Right. But he also, as a projectionist, gets to disconnect from it too, right? And so there's this fine line of Hank where, yes, he has to deal with the white world in a way that a lot of people don't, but he also gets to kind of live, like have this refuge. So I had to really start to ask those questions about that balance and what type of man is Hank and how does Hank carry himself? And Hank had to be conditioned to probably not follow his first impulse. Because that first impulse in 1962 would get Hank killed.
Yes.
And so I had to start to ask questions about my first impulse and how do I start to unravel that to get to, hopefully, Hank.
I think one of the best things about Hank is his relationship with Ronnie, and I would just like to hear more about playing that very meaningful father-daughter relationship and what it was like working with Amanda Christine and doing that together, because it is this back and forth, this dance of having intimacy and connection with someone you're supposed to look after. What was that like?
Yeah. Well, the great thing is that Andy and Barbara, they put together, when we first got there, a bowling party. And so all the kids were there. All the kids. And it was we had just got there and I got a chance to meet Amanda and I got a chance to meet her mother, Tamara. And it was awesome because from that moment, because of the type of mother she is, we exchanged information and we started to hang out. Her, Blake, we would literally, Jovan, Chris, all of us would go to the museum. We would go here. We would go there. We would go to each other's homes. I talk to them all the time. I talk to Amanda. Like, we talk. Like, that is my family. And I think the biggest blessing beyond that in a lot of ways was the strike because it allowed all of us to really sit with these relationships, and we would FaceTime each other and talk, and she would tell me her being a little, young. I'm like, oh man, it's like my niece is all over again, dealing with life, you know what I'm saying? But it allowed us to build an intimate relationship, and we had only filmed like a little bit before we went on strike. I think the biggest blessing is that we came back and we had a genuine relationship that transcended just me and her. Our families know each other. We still, and we still talk. And so I love Amanda. And I didn't have to pretend on loving her. Now, of course, I had to personalize that because she's still not my daughter. She's not right. But the fact that we learned how to love each other, and more so, especially for Black women, she had to learn how to trust me. And I think it was important for me to allow her to recognize that she could lean on me, she could depend on me, and I was consistent, and I would show up, not just on set, but show up. And because of it, I believe we were able to hopefully transcend what the pages, quote unquote, said.
Daddy!
Ready? Oh, baby.
I miss you so much.
There's also this really sweet moment when Hank asks Will about his favorite movie.
You really care about my daughter, don't you?
Yes, sir.
We have that in common. That's why I can't let her go. So what, the two of you been spending a lot of time together then?
Daddy.
Hush up now. You have a new gentleman friend. I'm your father. I should know him a little better. Let me ask you something, William. What's your favorite movie?
It is the first time that we get to see Hank. We get to see Hank as a father who is under pressure for so much of the show. But that feels like the first time that we see a little bit of a lightness in Hank.
Yes.
Where he just gets to be a dad, concerned about the boy that his daughter likes. Talk a little bit about, what that scene meant for you, and what do you think it says about Hank?
I love that. I love that. Man, that, Mark, you about to make me cry. My dad wasn't really in my life, and in 2000, my dad ended up passing away when I was in college. And I had the opportunity. My uncle was like, I think you should go see your dad. I was like, I don't want to go see that dude, man. Like, I ain't even my dad. That's Clyde. He ain't my dad. But I ended up going to see him, and he happened to be at that time sedated because he was in a lot of pain, and he died like 2 days later. But he never got a chance to tell me he loved me. And the beautiful thing about acting is, especially in like a scene like that, you get to also be able to create the fantastical. And I wish he would have done that with me.
You're gonna make me cry.
You know what I mean? And so to be able to create that type of moment of just a dad being a dad, I think acting it's most of life is bland. I don't care how famous you are. I don't give a shit who you are, right? Most of life on a daily basis is normal. But in the normality, you can find extraordinary moments. But in this moment, he gets to size up this young man. Actually, it's the first time I even know that he exists. And he is presenting himself. And it's funny because you know how we can lie, right? But kids don't know how to lie, so their bodies give up the information. And Hank in this moment gets an opportunity to see what she really is saying without saying it. And in that moment, you get to see that. You know what I'm saying? Like, not just his love for his daughter, but his love for this young man, which reveals so much about our community back then. Back then, our heroes lived in our community. Our heroes didn't leave our community. They couldn't. They had nowhere else to go. And so that is the beautiful thing, that he's parenting his daughter and at the same time parenting somebody he doesn't even really have a good relationship with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It transcends. Man, it's what I love about our community. The spirit of our community. Because he's loving on him in a way that I wish my dad loved on me.
Yeah.
But that moment, we get a chance to see the humanness and Hank just being Hank with his daughter, and I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
No.
And the fact that it is so elemental, I think. It is just a dad looking out for his kid.
And it wasn't there at first.
Really?
No, I mean, this is, Brad, Jason, Barbara, Andy, like trying to figure things out. You know what I'm saying? And like, they came up with this scene and it was beautiful. And I was like, we got to find a way, hopefully, because we were filming in tandem. So we were filming 4 episodes at the same time.
Yeah.
So if I'm not mistaken, we shot this on a Sunday to make this work. And I was like, the beautiful thing is that afterwards they were like, thank God this scene made it. And I'm like, thank God this scene made it. Because if you don't have that, you don't have their relationship. I mean, you all know. What do y'all think?
I mean, I think that it is that thing. It's the quiet in the storm. Because so much, especially the last act of the show, is storm. It's violence and it's anger and it's fear and it's all of these things. But you just have this moment that's just pure human connection.
Yeah.
Is what makes the rest of it hold together. Because now I know who he is and I know what the stakes are. I know who she is. And I know who Will is to both of them.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. And man, it was, I remember that feeling.
Listen, Stefan, thank you so much for dropping in. Thanks for talking about Welcome to Derry with us. And, I want to see you around the way, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for being so vulnerable. Like, it was such an amazing interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Horror lives in the details. In a flicker of light, a crease in a sleeve, a silhouette in the fog.
For Welcome to Derry, those details come alive through the vision of Oscar-nominated costume designer Luis Sequeira.
A longtime collaborator of the Muschietis and Guillermo del Toro, Luis has a gift for crafting costumes that feel both timeless and terrifying.
From The Shape of Water to It Chapter 2 and now Welcome to Derry, his work makes monsters and the people who face them feel utterly real.
We talked to Luis about how clothing becomes part of Derry's mythology. Hey, Luis.
Thank you for being here.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Glad you can make the time. When you first approached it, what visual language or rules did you set for the world of Derry? What truths guided the costumes across eras?
For the series, we were really looking at transporting the audience into a different time. And with that, it really came down to silhouette, color palette, and then the textures of that era. So even though we're like early 60s, we were really playing Derry as a late 50s kind of feeling. And with that, the color palette, in conjunction with the DOP, who wanted to really warm up the palette, I want to say it was like honey dipped horror. So for me, it really was trying to find this beautiful palette, as Andy would say, for the entire series with a slight souring of color or cooling of color later on in the season.
We know that you let the characters drive your designs, but what about the character of Derry itself, this cursed town and its history? Did that influence your costume palette and textures?
I think, again, it was really kind of putting together this timeless place that was rural, not urban. And so we wanted to have, classic Americana, a little bit of off to left field, not Central America, but Eastern America. And with that, it really was using some classic imagery whenever we were doing extras or even some of our characters.
You and production designer Paul Austerberry go way back. In fact, this isn't even the first Cold War era project you've designed together. Can you explain a little bit how you interface with a production designer? What's the secret sauce that you both add to the project? And how do you conjure together what this time period is like?
I think what's great about Paul and I, and we've worked together on, I think, 4 projects now, is the open communication and that open collaboration. And that happens together, separate, back together, and we check in throughout production. I check in with him and the set designers and the set dressers and props people. And with Paul's guidance on his level and with what I bring together, we really are, as I would say, painting the frame, sometimes working harmoniously, sometimes working in opposites, depending on the desire of the director.
When it comes to Pennywise, it's obviously an iconic character in the horror landscape, spanning many decades and permutations with the Tim Curry version and Bill Skarsgård. When you developed the costumes for It Chapter 2, what were some of the ways that you intended to update his design for a modern audience while still honoring the legacy and continuing the continuity of this character.
With It Chapter 2, we'd had a beautiful costume that was done for the first movie. But because we were 27 years later, Andy thought, this is an entity that can shapeshift. And so there was a slight change in proportion. We brought the waist up, we created a bigger bloomer. And then on a technical level, I introduced a whole understructure that was stretch. So even though the outer costume is all in silk, the under paneling is completely stretched. So this allowed Bill the ability to do stunt work and, full mobility with an underlying of cotton spandex. That was what we saw from the inside. And then from the outside, we really went next level on the aging with staining and using silicone and various paints to give Pennywise even more a horrific look for the second movie.
And moving into episode 106, we open with Juniper Hill in 1935 in black and white on top of it, where we see a young Ingrid Kirsch lead a girl into the boiler room in search of Pennywise the Clown.
So, Mabel, this is where the clown told you to meet him?
You've said in other interviews how you studied cloth changes from color to black and white when you're working on The Shape of Water, one of my favorite movies of all time. What were the major considerations you found with that transition when designing?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about black and white and like Shape of Water, where we, for a moment, we were considering shooting that project, which now seems insane, considering the color was such an important part of it. But again, for this episode, having the black and white factor was really testing fabrics to understand how they react to black and white. And so that really centers around contrast, it centers around texture. And so with my fabric buyer, we put together a collection of fabrics that I thought I'd like to use, and then we did a test, and we really wanted to make sure that we were not going to put ourselves into a box, because certain textures will start to strobe on TV. And so what you think is a wonderful linen texture, you put it in front of the camera and all of a sudden it starts to buzz on you. So it really, it's what I love about this industry and my work is that you are always learning, you are always refining your craft. And so for this episode, it really was zeroing in on the fabrics that I could use to build the various costumes.
To that point, did you have to redesign Pennywise's costume? Did you need a completely different vibe to play in the black and white?
There was a slightly different version of it where we upped the contrast of the aging for the black and white. It was the same fabric, but it was much more contrast. Because you can imagine that if it was low contrast, it would almost look, completely new, which was not what we wanted. So it was, again, testing and retesting to get the balance right.
One of the interesting designs is Periwinkle, who we meet in this episode. Ingrid's version of her father's clown has a slightly different silhouette with the three-prong hair.
If he could just see me once more as his periwinkle, remind him of the love that we shared, I know that he'll be able to break free.
I would love to talk about the design for Periwinkle because, of course, it's, close to Pennywise, but they're little different things. And I feel like clown makeup and clown lore is always very intentional about the character. So can you just tell us more about Periwinkle's design?
Yeah, we got a glimpse of it in another episode earlier, but really it was reality, but we were also dealing a lot with memory of Ingrid and Periwinkle. So really it was trying to find interesting fabric that was different from Pennywise, but had some interest. And so there was a wonderful pebble textured silk that I found. And then we did, again, many color samples to find the right balance of the two tones that we used. And then trying to find all the trims that would feel within the family of Pennywise, but unique to Periwinkle. And there was a sense of, playfulness to her costume that I quite liked. The way that it was not fitted the way Pennywise is. It had a loose quality to it, but it was a fun child's costume to design.
Speaking of children, you get to design the Losers Club. Can you tell us a little bit about how you use costuming to help reveal the distinct visual identities, to express who these kids are? Because you get moments of Marge standing up to the patty cakes, you get the moments of them having fun in the black spot, but these are just kids. And so how do you tell that story in ways that are different from how you tell the adult stories?
I think with our children, the Losers Club. I think what was interesting is really understanding where their social economic background was and playing into that. Lily, with a single mother who we learn is not really in touch. She had a disheveled sort of quality to her. And so everything about her was not pressed. And it was, getting my team not to press everything nicely has been a long-standing thing. I do want the ripples in that cotton, and I do want something to look disheveled because it's part of that character. In regards to Rich having that Latin look was intricate to that character. With Matilda playing Marge, we have her really on a bridge between the patty cakes and her friendship with Lily, and being somewhat of an outcast, but trying so desperately to be part of the patty cakes. And the patty cakes, let her in for a split second and slap her back, which was kind of, I felt bad for her. And in that case of that really special sweater that she wears too often, we wanted something that was almost like she crafted it to be more like the patty cakes, but then got slapped down because she was wearing it, 2 days in a row.
Wonder what they're talking about.
Probably planning another murder. Maybe we're next.
Oh my god!
Hey, Margie. Weren't you wearing that sweater yesterday?
Blake playing Will, a very together look, a very well-loved, well-curated look, being from the South. And so he was always well put together. I think what you find later on in the season is that things start to relax. And as obviously things unravel, they all kind of unravel. One of the other things with regards to the kids, having shot this over 2 years, is they grew. We had to recut their clothes 5 times. We at first, the first couple of episodes, we altered everything very precisely, and then we learned very quickly that this was going to be a challenge. And so at the 5th time, one actor had gone from a size 6, boy 6 shoe to a size 9 men's shoe. So we really had some shifts in our cast, and that was really a challenge to not only keep up with the same proportions and even some of that fabric. We were running out of fabric and didn't really count on the 2 years time span, which was an interesting challenge.
Puberty is truly the greatest horror.
It was for my team, I have to say.
Tell us about designing for the black spot. That feels like such a different texture than the rest of Derry.
Oh yeah, and the black spot. So the black spot, it's the first time that we actually see this whole world, because we've been living in Main Street, Derry, and now we're seeing kind of a speakeasy. And so, of course, each extra was pre-fit. Every extra in the series was pre-fit. And we had photographic research of various club scenes, and I really wanted to evoke that looseness and that feeling at ease with each other, rather than when we're in Derry, there's a primness and a buttoned upness. So with this, there was, again, just a bit of a looseness, and a lot of the garments, some of which were made for the extras, had the ability to flow for the dancing. And I really wanted to have that be an element. Nothing was too stiff on those characters.
What are they doing?
I think they're dancing.
What kind of dancing is that?
What's really interesting about this project being a Stephen King, and I've done Carrie, which is Stephen King, and done It, I think is really creating this world that always feels slightly off from center. And that really was, for me, trying to, in one way, we're doing something that is really, romanticized a time period and romanticized a situation, but then always having a little bit of a switch up that causes you to not notice it per se, but it does creep in on you. We always had a little bit of an off quality to the people and the characters, and people who would be stuck. Some people would be stuck in a different era. And so it gives you that opportunity to pull, even though we're in 1962, we had design elements that were all the way back from the 30s, which was, gives you that kind of breadth of reality.
Thank you, Luis, so much for your time and for these beautiful costumes. They bring Derry to life. And thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
In Derry, love is a compass and sometimes a curse. Hank's a father trying to keep his daughter safe while the town points him toward the gallows.
And as Luis reminded us, horror lives in the details. A higher waistline, a rougher fabric, the crease of a sleeve. Tiny choices that make the nightmare feel that much more real.
Next week, we'll keep peeling back the layers for our penultimate episode. This time, we'll be back with executive producers Andy and Barbara Muschietti.
Plus, production designer Paul Osterberry and composer Benjamin Volfish. We'll see you next week.
Same time, same sewer.
The It Welcome to Derry podcast is a production of HBO in collaboration with Spoke Media. The show is hosted by me, Mark Bernardin, and Princess Weeks.
Jenna Burnett is our senior producer, and Tess Ryan is our supervising producer.
Our associate producer is Addie Vaughn, with help from Montse Rodriguez and Trey Jones.
Sound design and mix by Sammy Syret.
For Spoke Media, our executive producer is Aaliyah Tavakoli.
Special thanks to Michael Gluckstadt, Allison Cohen-Sorokach, Kenya Reyes, and Aaron Kelly from the HBO Max podcast team.
Thanks for listening, and see you next week.
If your dad's out of pickle, he's in jail, or a clown, or slapping you. It's not great for fathers, this episode.
No. World's Best Father is not a mug anybody's going to get in episode 106 of Welcome to Derry.
Daddy issues are us.